Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Professor Ernst Lee at the Hanyang University School of Business. Professor Lee, good to have you back on.
Devin, thank you very much for having me again.
Well, we have the first visit today, big news in Seoul, of the top officials from the Biden administration, which is putting the case of U.S. China relations front and center again. Back before the pandemic, the markets were hinging on this issue to a great degree, and so if tensions rise, it would seem that might affect the markets again. What do you make of the situation, Professor?
Well, I think this is the first debut for Joe Biden to go for a diplomatic stage. And as this is the first protocol meeting, I think the U.S. and China are setting basically different expectations for their first summit meetings. The summit in Anchorage will make some progress, I think, but two are likely to lay out their own positions. I would say it's an opportunity for some recalibration. I see it as a one-off event where the U.S. will confirm their position and China will also their confirmed position. I think U.S. will pressure China on a range of security and human rights issues such as Taiwan, the South China Sea, and Xinjiang and Hong Kong that China will need to address before it improves relations with Washington. But in my interpretation, the reason why U.S. is bringing up all these issues is for more important subject, which is the Joe Biden's policy, economic and foreign policy. On the economic front, Joe Biden policy has proclaimed already that will further strengthen curbs on China on export and technologies. In particular, on the technologies, the curbs will be on high tech in a special regard to mobile 5G technologies and energy technology. Now that's the reason why I think the U.S. is bringing up all these issues to pressure China. That China has repeatedly stressed that that's the domestic issue. And on the other hand, the major change in the Joe Biden's foreign policy is the Joe Biden administration will deploy a predictable policy and will align with the alliances on China policy. So will not be just only China, pressure China, but Joe Biden will embrace and align with other allies to pressure China. So that will have an impact to Korea as well. But from stock market and the U.S. dollar point, I think that will lead to weak dollar and a positive signal to stock markets outside of the United States. That's how I view, actually. Yeah.
It's a very interesting perspective. Some of that carrying over from the previous administration, maybe not in terms of predictability, but otherwise. Now, this week we saw a big business deal announced in Korea. The web giant Naver and the retail powerhouse Shinsegae Group are teaming up by acquiring each other's shares. And with this deal, they hope to strengthen their competitiveness against companies like Coupang. Tell us about this deal and their prospects now as you see them.
Well, I think first of all, we have to understand about Coupang. I don't want to take too much time, but in a brief introduction, Coupang is #1 e-commerce platform with 48 million users. And not just a platform linking seller and customer, but covering logistics and delivery. This is a very unique model, unlike other online shopping malls in the last year. And Coupang made a very aggressive investment. And Coupang positioned as a pioneer in Korean e-commerce market and fastly cannibalizing e-commerce market shares. But speaking of the e-commerce market share, Coupang takes up account for 13.7%, Naver 18.6%, and Shinsegae that runs ssg.com 2.4%. So from standpoint of Naver and Shinsegae, I think they have two reasons. One, strategic reasons to cope with the Coupang's market expansion. And also, in a practical sense, complementary effect between Shinsegae and Naver. Well, Shinsegae has a long-standing experience in the retail chain, but they have no non-grocery goods. So they don't deal with non-grocery goods. But what Naver has. So this will be a complementary effect. And Naver, on the other hand, they don't deal with fresh food. So from a business standpoint, I think these two are expecting complementary effect. By that, they'd like to stop expansion of the Coupang's market expansion. And of course, if Shinsegae and Naver, they coordinate together, I think they can create user synergies by, the both users can target cross-selling each other. And while e-commerce market is becoming the market that winner takes it all market, and CapEx investment is extremely important. With that, I think the Naver and Shinsegae alliance together to cope against Coupang.
It'll be a fascinating thing to watch business-wise, Professor. Now, the price of Bitcoin, we have to talk about that, is down from its recent all-time high of around $61,000. And at that level, of course, it passed 70 million Korean won. A lot of that story had to do with interest in Bitcoin among big companies like Tesla. There are optimists like Cathie Wood of ARK Invest calling for Bitcoin at $250,000. But in any event, there's the case being made that it's so-called digital gold. What do you see happening with Bitcoin or the other cryptocurrencies?
Speaking of the company, I think the Tesla CEO market has viewed him as a dreamer who can deliver a future dream. But certainly, market was disappointed by him. He is seen as a speculator of the Bitcoin. But not only that, as a matter of fact, Bitcoin is emerging as a new benchmark digital currency, i.e. maybe the new digital reference currency. It doesn't matter actually whether the Bitcoin could be accepted as a legal tender or not by each government, like the U.S. Security Exchange or other governments. It has become a leader in the digital world because the new currency market is opening and Bitcoin is taking the lead in this regard. And Bitcoin is regarded as an alternative investment by global asset management companies. And they are including Bitcoin in their portfolio as alternative investment. What not alternative investment means, actually, they don't think it's very important, but just in case, they need to include Bitcoin in protection of the global economic situation changes. So take an example. In a recent interview with the Market Watch, one of the top U.S. private equity funds, Oaktree Capital chairman, Howard Marks, he said in 2017, Bitcoin is unfounded fad, but he said it was his mistake. Likewise, and global asset management companies are including Bitcoin as one of the portfolio. By the way, the Bitcoin, as everyone knows, Bitcoin has limited the issuance in total 21 million. But those global asset management companies, when they invest in Bitcoin, they don't buy and sell quickly. So they keep Bitcoin minimum 2 to 3 years, which drives market liquidities. That's why a small portion, trading portion of the Bitcoin can escalate higher price. However, I would not actually, strongly recommend to deal Bitcoin as a speculative trading currency. However, the implication Bitcoin can bring is great. So I don't think Bitcoin can keep its position as the only leading digital currency. But I would expect other digital currencies that would practically used and accepted by government will emerge and take the Bitcoin position. So anyway, I think it's Bitcoin's role is like a lighting house for a new digital economy. But I would put caution for investment purposes.
Got it. All right, Professor Lee, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. We appreciate it, as always.
Thank you very much.